A sprawling Bel Air mansion with panoramic views of Los Angeles, a 10-year marriage built from a college romance, and a tech fortune valued at over $1 billion. This was the world of Edric and Hannah Montrose. From the outside, it was a fairy tale. But fairy tales can be the most terrifying ghost stories. In a single evening, their entire world was shattered by 3 simple, devastating words: "She's pregnant." This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's a story about a man who threw everything away for a lie and a woman who had to lose everything to find herself. What happens when the dust settles is a twist that no one, especially not the millionaire who thought he had it all, ever saw coming. The air in the minimalist marble-floored dining room was so thick with unspoken words, it felt hard to breathe. Hannah watched her husband, Edric, swirl the deep crimson Bordeaux in his glass, the crystal catching the light from the ridiculously expensive chandelier overhead. It was a scene of opulent perfection, meticulously curated, just like every other aspect of their lives, since his company Innovate Dynamics had gone public. He had the world at his fingertips, and she supposedly had him. But for the past 6 months, she'd had a ghost. A version of Edric who was physically present, but emotionally 1,000,000 miles away. His laughter didn't reach his eyes anymore. His touch was a fleeting, absent-minded gesture, and his phone had become a fortified extension of his hand, guarded with a ferocity that bordered on paranoia. "You've been quiet all evening," Hannah said, her voice a soft counterpoint to the cavernous silence. She'd chosen her words carefully. Accusation was a landmine she couldn't afford to step on, not yet. Edric didn't look up from his wine. "Just a lot on my mind. Q4 projections are aggressive." It was always work, the perfect, unimpeachable excuse. For years, she had been his silent partner in that work. She was the one who had read his business plans in their cramped post-college apartment, who had designed the first logo for Innovate Dynamics on her beat-up laptop, who had celebrated his first seed funding with a $5 bottle of champagne. She had put her own promising career as a graphic artist on hold to support his dream. Now his dream was $1 billion reality that felt more like her prison. "I saw a charge on the black card statement." She began, her heart thumping a nervous rhythm against her ribs. "A purchase from Cartier. I didn't think my birthday was for another 3 months." His hand froze, the swirling of the wine coming to an abrupt halt. He slowly placed the glass on the table, the click of crystal on polished oak unnaturally loud. He finally lifted his gaze, and the man looking back at her wasn't the warm, ambitious boy she had fallen in love with. This was a stranger, his eyes holding the cold, hard sheen of polished steel. "We need to talk. Hannah!" And there it was, the 4 words that are always the prelude to a heartbreak. "I haven't been fair to you." He started a line so rehearsed it felt insulting. "I've been unhappy for a while now." Unhappy? The word felt foreign, absurd. They had everything anyone could ever want. Unhappy with what Edric, the private jet, the house in Aspen, the life you said you always dreamed of. "It's not about that." He snapped his composure, cracking for a second. "It's not about the things." "Then what is it about?" she whispered, a cold dread creeping up her spine. He took a deep breath, the kind a man takes before he executes a decision he's long since made. "Her name is Brooke. She works in marketing at the company." The name hung in the air, a poisonous vapor. Brooke, a 26-year-old with bright eyes and a relentless ambition Hannah had spotted from a mile away. She'd seen the way Brooke looked at Edric in company photos, the lingering hand on his arm, the laugh that was just a little too loud. Hannah had dismissed it as the behavior of a social climber. She had tragically underestimated the situation. "You're having an affair," Hannah stated, her voice flat, devoid of the emotion that was raging inside her. It was a dam holding back a tsunami of pain. "It's more than that," he said, and the dam broke. "Hannah, she's pregnant." The world tilted on its axis. The chandelier above seemed to sway its light, fracturing into 1,000,000 tiny, blinding shards. Pregnant. The word was a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. They had tried for a baby for 2 years, 2 years of invasive tests, timed schedules, and quiet, crushing disappointment each month. The doctors had gently suggested it was likely due to Edric's relentless stress and traveler problem that money couldn't solve. And now this. Her shock gave way to a wave of white-hot fury. "You did this! You did this to us!" "I know," he said, and the most infuriating part was the flicker of relief in his eyes. He was glad the secret was out. "I'm sorry for the way this happened, but I'm not sorry that it did. I feel alive with her, Hannah. I feel happy." "So what happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What do you want?" "I want a divorce," he said, the words as clean and sterile as a surgeon's scalpel. "I've already had my lawyer, Mr. Davenport, draw up the papers. It's a very generous offer. You'll be well taken care of." "Generous?" She let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. "You think you can put a price on 10 years of my life, on the career I gave up for you, on everything?" "Don't be dramatic," he said, his voice hardening again. The CAO was back. "This is a transaction now. I'll give you the condo in West Hollywood, and a settlement, $5 million. $5 million. To him, it was a rounding error. To her, it was an insult wrapped in a paycheck. It was the price of her silence, her dignity. "I want you out of the house, Hannah," he continued, standing up the final nail in the coffin. "Brooke is going to be moving in. She's delicate in her condition, and I don't want any added stress. I've had your things packed. They're in the guest wing. A car will be here in the morning to take you to the condo." He didn't just want a divorce. He wanted her erased. He was replacing the old model with the new one, and he wanted the showroom floor cleared immediately. She looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw the full, horrifying depth of his betrayal. He had planned this. The packed bags, the lawyer, the condo. This wasn't a confession. It was an eviction notice. Her fury solidified into something cold and hard. "Get out," she whispered. "What? This is my house. Get out!" She screamed, the sound tearing from her throat, raw and ragged. She stood up so quickly, her chair scraped violently against the floor. "I will not be thrown out of my own home in the middle of the night like a piece of trash. I will leave in the morning, as you so generously arranged. But for tonight you will not be under this roof. Go to her." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. He saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Not just pain, but a chilling, steely resolve. He opened his mouth to argue, then thought better of it. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the dining room. A few moments later, she heard the front door open and close, followed by the roar of his McLaren tearing down the driveway. Hannah stood alone in the vast, silent room, the half-eaten meal a mockery of a life that no longer existed. She sank back into her chair, the cold finally seeping into her bones. Her marriage was over. Her home was gone. Her life as she knew it had been completely and utterly demolished. The West Hollywood condo was beautiful, of course. It was all glass and chrome, with a sterile, impersonal air that screamed corporate housing. Edric had bought it for investment purposes a year ago. Now Hannah understood its true purpose. It was a holding cell for his discarded wife. The boxes of her belongings, clothes, books, personal items, sat in the middle of the living room, a sad cardboard monument to her former life. The things from the mansion, the furniture she'd picked out, the art they'd collected remained behind. She had been allowed her personal effects, nothing more. For the first week, Hannah barely moved. She existed in a grey fog of shock and grief. Sleep came in short, jagged bursts, haunted by nightmares of Edric and a smiling, pregnant Brooke redecorating her home. She'd wake up gasping for air, the phantom pain of betrayal, a physical ache in her chest. Her phone was a constant torment. News travelled fast in their circle. Sympathetic texts from friends felt like pity. The silence from others felt like judgment. Then came the social media posts. Brooke, not even attempting to be discreet, posted a photo of her hand, a massive diamond engagement ring on her finger, resting on Edric's. The caption read, "A new chapter with my soulmate." Soulmate. The word was a dagger. Days later, a gossip site published photos of them, walking hand in hand out of a high-end baby boutique on Rodeo Drive, Edric's hand resting protectively on Brooke's barely there bump. He looked happier than Hannah had seen him in years. Each image, each post was a fresh wave of agony. She was being replaced in real time her life, with Edric being systematically overwritten. Her only lifeline was her best friend, Lena, a sharp, no-nonsense journalist who had never been a fan of the new Edric. Lena arrived on the second day with 2 large grocery bags, a bottle of very good tequila, and a look of righteous fury. "That absolute son of a bitch," Lena said, bypassing a greeting as she slammed the bags on the quartz countertop. "I swear, Hannah, if I see him, I might commit a felony." And her "the delicate condition marketing intern." Give me a break. Hannah just shook her head, pulling a blanket tighter around herself. "It's all real. She saw him as a target, and she won." "No," Lena said, her voice softening as she put a hand on Hannah's shoulder. "She didn't win. She just revealed what he truly is. You didn't lose a husband, hun. You lost a parasite who was feeding on your goodness for a decade." Lena stayed with her for 3 days, forcing her to eat, making her shower, and absorbing her endless looping cycle of grief and anger. She deleted Hannah's social media apps and fielded calls from concerned family members. Meanwhile, Edric was soaring. He and Brooke were the new power couple. He threw a lavish party at the mansion to celebrate their engagement and the impending arrival. He made a massive donation to the city's children's hospital, in their names a PR move, so blatant it was insulting. His business partner, David Chen, called Hannah once, his voice full of genuine remorse. "I'm so sorry, Hannah," David said, his tone low. "I tried to talk to him. He's not the same man we knew. This girl, Brooke, she has him completely wrapped around her finger. He's alienating everyone. He's making rash business decisions. He's convinced he's infallible." "Thank you for calling, David," Hannah had said, her voice hollow. "It means a lot. If you need anything at all, a character witness, financial records, just say the word." She knew it was a risky offer for him, a direct challenge to his partnership with Edric. It was a small comfort to know that not everyone had been blinded by Edric's new life. The lowest point came 2 weeks after she'd left, drowning in legal documents from Edric's lawyer, a man whose correspondence was as cold as his client's heart. Hannah found an old portfolio case tucked away in one of the boxes. It was her art portfolio from college and the years just after. Inside were sketches, design concepts, and vibrant digital prints. It was a relic from a different woman, a woman with dreams that had nothing to do with supporting someone else's. She remembered her final project, a series of intricate digital paintings exploring the concept of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making the cracks part of its history and beauty. The irony was so profound it made her sick. Here she was, shattered into 1,000 pieces, with no gold in sight to put her back together. She slid to the floor, leaning against the cold glass wall, overlooking a city that now felt alien and hostile. The portfolio lay open in her lap. The tears she had been holding back finally came not as a gentle stream, but as a gut-wrenching, soul-cleansing storm. She cried for the girl who had fallen in love, for the woman who had sacrificed too much, and for the future that had been stolen from her. The emptiness of the condo echoed her own. She was utterly and completely alone, a ghost in a life that was supposed to have been hers. The sound of her own sobs was the only thing that proved she was still there at all. The storm of tears left a strange calm in its wake. It was the quiet of a battlefield after the fighting stops, a landscape of devastation, but a landscape nonetheless. For the first time in weeks, Hannah woke up not with a sense of dread, but with a hollowed-out feeling that was oddly fertile. It was the blank slate of someone with nothing left to lose. That morning she called Lena. "I need a lawyer," she said, her voice raspy but firm. "Not just any lawyer. I need a shark." Lena, ever resourceful, had a name. Catherine Peterson. They called her the Lioness. She eats arrogant tech bros for breakfast. Getting an appointment is hard, but I'll make some calls. 2 days later, Hannah was sitting in a plush leather chair in a high-rise office overlooking Century City. Catherine Peterson was in her late 50s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a tailored suit that probably cost more than Hannah's first car. She listened to the entire story without interruption, her expression unreadable. When Hannah finished, her voice cracking as she recounted the eviction, Peterson simply nodded. "Mr. Montrose and his counsel, Mr. Davenport, are operating under the assumption that you are a grieving, compliant spouse who will take the initial offer to avoid a messy public battle." Peterson said, her voice calm and measured. "This is a common and often effective strategy. They are counting on your emotional devastation to cloud your judgment." She tapped a perfectly manicured finger on the settlement offer Edric's lawyer had sent. $5 million. It sounds like a lot of money to most people. But in the context of a 10-year marriage to a man whose company's market cap is currently north of $12 billion, a company you were instrumental in founding, it is, to put it mildly, an insult. Hannah felt a flicker of validation. "He said I gave up my career willingly." "Of course he did." Peterson scoffed lightly. "Did you sign a prenuptial agreement?" "No," Hannah said. "We were 22. We had nothing but student loan debt and a shared pizza." A slow smile spread across Catherine Peterson's face. "Then we are not here to accept a settlement, Mrs. Montrose. We are here to claim your rightful share of a marital asset. You weren't just the supportive wife. You were an uncredited, unpaid co-founder. You designed the original logo, correct, participated in early strategy sessions, hosted potential investors in your home. Yes, all of it." "Excellent," Peterson said, leaning forward. "Forget the $5 million. We are going to countersue for a 15% stake in Innovate Dynamics. We will subpoena his business partner, David Chen. We will bring in forensic accountants. We will make it very clear that a public, protracted, and deeply embarrassing court battle will be far more costly to his company's stock price than a fair and equitable division of assets." For the first time in a month, Hannah felt a surge of something other than pain. It was power. It was the feeling of taking back control. "Okay," she said, her voice stronger now. "Let's do it." Leaving Peterson's office, Hannah felt a shift in the air. The city no longer seemed hostile. It seemed full of possibilities. That evening, Instead of hiding under a blanket, she unpacked her old workstation, a high-end graphics tablet, and a powerful computer gifts from Edric in the early days, back when he still saw her talent as an asset, not a hobby. She dusted them off, plugged them in, and opened a blank digital canvas. Staring at the white screen, she thought about the kintsugi project from her college days. The idea of brokenness made beautiful. Her own life was a shattered vase. What if she could piece it back together, not by hiding the cracks, but by illuminating them? Her fingers started to move across the tablet. She didn't sketch, she fractured. She drew jagged, broken lines, stark and violent. Then, in the spaces between them, she began to paint. Not with gold, but with vibrant, defiant colors. She poured all her pain, her rage, and her heartbreak onto the digital canvas. The result was chaotic, raw, and surprisingly beautiful. It was a self-portrait of a soul torn apart. She worked for hours, losing track of time, fueled by coffee and a burning sense of purpose. She created a second piece, this one, depicting a gilded cage, with its door torn from the hinges, a single feather floating away. A third showed a heart made of glass, cracked down the middle, with a relentless, thorny vine growing through the fissure, blooming with impossible flowers. She created a collection of 12 pieces, calling it the Shattered Collection. Each one was a story, a moment of her pain transformed into art. On a whim, remembering the rise of digital art marketplaces, she minted them as NFTs, a world she knew something about from listening to Edric's endless talk of blockchain technology. She set up a profile under a pseudonym, Kintsugi, and listed the collection. She didn't expect anything to come of it. It was simply an act of catharsis, of releasing the poison that had been coursing through her veins. She had taken the broken pieces of her life and started to build something new. It wasn't a home, it wasn't a marriage, but it was hers. It was the first golden thread in a tapestry she had yet to fully imagine. And as she finally went to sleep, exhausted but clear-headed, she realized she hadn't thought about Edric or Brooke for 6 whole hours. It was a start. Edric Montrose believed he had engineered the perfect life. He had his brilliant, beautiful, and adoring fiancée Brooke living in his palace. His business was thriving, and the minor inconvenience of his divorce was being handled by the best lawyers money could buy. He was in his own mind, untouchable. But paradise had a price tag, and Brooke was an expert at running up the tab. Her delicate condition became a blanket justification for every whim. The nursery had to be redesigned 3 times by a celebrity interior designer. She needed a new G-Wagon because his McLaren was too aggressive for the baby. Her wardrobe was replaced wholesale with maternity clothes from high-end designers. Edric initially was happy to indulge her. It was part of the fantasy providing for his new family, showering them with the fruits of his success. But her materialism was relentless, and it came with a new, unwelcome trait control. She vetted his social calendar, insisting they only attend events that would get them positive press. "It's about building our brand as a family, darling," she'd coo, stroking his ego while subtly isolating him. Old friends like David Chen were pushed to the periphery. Brooke found them dour and unsupportive. "Why do you even talk to David anymore?" she asked one evening, scrolling through her phone as Edric tried to decompress from a stressful day. "He's so clearly Team Hannah. It's bad energy for the baby." "David's my business partner and my oldest friend," Edric retorted a bit more sharply than he intended. "We built the company together. And now we are building a family together," she said, placing a hand on her stomach, the ultimate trump card. "Priorities change, Edric." He let it drop, but the conversation left a bitter taste. David had been his best man. He was the one Edric had called shaking with excitement after securing their first round of funding. Now he was bad energy. The cracks began to show in other ways too. Brooke seemed to have an almost pathological aversion to discussing her past. When Edric asked about her family, she gave vague, conflicting answers. Her parents were retired and traveling, or living a quiet life off the grid. She had no old friends she wanted to introduce him to, claiming she'd cut off a lot of toxic people when she decided to get serious about her career. It all sounded plausible on the surface, the narrative of a self-made woman, but it felt hollow, like a backstory written for a character in a movie. The most jarring incident happened during a routine ultrasound appointment. The doctor, a cheerful woman named Dr. Albright, was pointing out the baby's features on the screen, and there's the heartbeat, strong and steady at 150 beats per minute, she said. Everything looks perfectly on track for 22 weeks. Edric beamed, squeezing Brooke's hand, but Brooke just smiled tightly. 22 weeks, are you sure? My old doctor, Dr. Miller, thought I was a bit further along. Dr. Albright pulled up her chart. Well, all the measurements are consistent with the conception date around mid-February. Is Dr. Miller your regular OB-GYN? Oh, he was just at a clinic I went to when I first found out, Brooke said quickly, shooting a nervous glance at Edric. It was just a quick checkup before I could get in to see you. Edric didn't think much of it at the moment, lost in the wonder of seeing his child on the screen. But the detail lodged itself in the back of his mind. Mid-February. He and Brooke had started their affair in January, but it had been sporadic. He had been traveling for business for the first 2 weeks of February, a big tech conference in Germany. He was sure of it. The timing was tight. Very tight. He tried to bring it up casually on the drive home. I didn't realize we were together in mid-February. I thought I was in Berlin for that whole stretch. Brooke laughed, a brittle sound. Oh, sweetie, you and your crazy schedule. You flew back on the 14th, remember Valentine's Day. You said you had to get back for a critical meeting. You came over to my apartment that night. It was very romantic. He searched his memory. He did come back for a critical meeting. But did he go to her place? The days blended into a blur of jet lag and work. It was possible. Her confidence seemed to assuage his momentary doubt, but the seed was planted, a tiny, insidious splinter of distrust. He started noticing small things. The way she'd angle her phone away from him when she texted. A hushed phone call she ended abruptly when he walked into the room claiming it was just my mother. One evening he came home early to find her in a heated argument on the phone in the garden. He couldn't hear the words, but her body language was tense, angry. When she saw him, she hung up immediately, her face pale. "Who was that?" he asked, keeping his tone light. "Just a telemarketer." She lied, forcing a bright smile. Incredibly persistent. "You know how they are." He knew she was lying. And in that moment, standing on the perfectly manicured lawn of his perfect home, looking at his perfect fiancée, Edric felt a cold knot of dread tighten in his stomach. The paradise he had built was starting to feel like an elaborate stage, and he was beginning to suspect he was the only one who didn't know the script. The splinter of doubt in Edric's mind festered. Her lies, once easily dismissed, now echoed in the vast, quiet spaces of the mansion. He started paying closer attention, not as a doting fiancé, but as a CEO analyzing a potential security threat. The catalyst for his investigation was surprisingly mundane. He was looking for an iPad charger in the drawer of the bedside table on Brooke's side of the bed. Beneath a pile of magazines, his fingers brushed against another phone. It was an older model, one he didn't recognize. His heart hammered against his ribs. There was no legitimate reason for her to have a secret second phone. With trembling hands, he took it. It was password protected, of course. But people were predictable. He tried her birthday. No luck. He tried his birthday. Nothing. He tried the baby's due date. The screen unlocked. His blood ran cold. The phone was a treasure trove of deception. There were text message threads going back months with a contact saved simply as K. The conversations were sickeningly familiar, full of pet names and inside jokes, but it was the financial talk that made him feel physically ill. K. Did he buy the ring yet? Needs to be at least 5 carats. Don't settle. Brooke. Working on it. He's so wrapped up in the miracle baby, he'll buy me the whole store if I cry a little. K rent is due. Did you get the transfer? Brooke sent it this morning. Told him it was for a prenatal wellness retreat. He didn't even blink. And then the message that vaporized his world from late February. K, you sure this is going to work? The timing is risky. If he finds out it's mine. Brooke. He was out of the country. His memory of that week is a blur. He wants this baby more than anything. He'll believe what he wants to believe. We just have to stick to the story. Our baby is going to have the life we deserve, Kyle. I promise. Kyle. K. The baby was Kyle's. Edric sank onto the edge of the bed, the phone feeling like a lead weight in his hand. He couldn't breathe. Every loving gesture, every shared moment of excitement over their baby was a lie. He wasn't building a family. He was funding someone else's. He was the mark in the most elaborate, intimate con imaginable. The fury that rose in him was volcanic, scorching away every last trace of affection he'd felt for Brooke. He needed proof. Concrete, undeniable proof. He remembered David's offer months ago. Swallowing his pride, he made the call. David, he said, his voice strained. I need your help. It's about Brooke. David listened patiently as Edric recounted his discovery, his voice devoid of any, I told you so. He was simply a friend. I have a contact, David said finally. A private investigator. Very discreet, very thorough. His name is Robert Jones. I'll send you his number. While Edric's world was imploding, Hannah's was expanding in ways she never could have imagined. Her NFT collection. The Shattered collection had gone viral. It was first noticed by a prominent female art blogger who wrote a glowing piece about the raw emotional power of the anonymous artist Kintsugi. In a world of cartoon apes and pixelated memes, the blog read, Kintsugi's work is a lightning bolt of authentic human emotion. It is a testament to the beautiful, defiant power of turning pain into art. This is not just digital art. It is a digital soul laid bare. From there, it exploded. The collection sold out in a week, fetching sums that left Hannah stunned. Crypto millionaires and traditional art collectors alike vied for the pieces. The anonymity only fueled the fire. Who was Kintsugi? What was the story behind the pain? Soon major art publications were writing about her. A gallery in downtown Los Angeles' arts district reached out, offering her a solo exhibition, a physical showing of her digital work on high-definition screens. Hannah, with the guidance of her lawyer Catherine Peterson, who had now become a trusted advisor, formed a company. She hired a small team. She used the profits from the NFT sales to quietly invest in a creative tech startup that specialized in immersive digital art experiences. She was no longer the discarded wife living in a condo. She was Kintsugi, a celebrated artist. She was an investor. She was the CEO of her own life. She had taken the $5 million insult and was on her way to turning it into a $50 million empire, all while Edric remained completely oblivious. Her pain had not just been her muse, it had become her capital, and it was about to pay dividends he could never have conceived. Robert Jones, the private investigator, was a man who seemed to blend into the background. He was average in every way, which for his line of work made him exceptional. He met Edric in a nondescript coffee shop, took down the details with a few quiet grunts, and promised to be in touch. Less than 48 hours later, the first email arrived. It was a background check on Brooke Miller. Her real name was Brooke Kowalski. Her parents weren't off-the-grid travelers. They lived in a suburb of Cleveland, and her father was a retired postal worker. She had a mountain of credit card debt from 3 years prior, most of which had been mysteriously paid off in the last 6 months. And she had a long-term, on-again, off-again boyfriend, a part-time fitness instructor, and aspiring actor named Kyle Bishop. A photo was attached. It was a man Edric had seen before, a handsome, generic-looking man from the gym Brooke insisted on joining. The second email came a day later, and it was the kill shot. Jones had, through means Edric didn't want to know, acquired a copy of the intake form from that first clinic Brooke had mentioned to Dr. Albright. She had listed an emergency contact. The name was Kyle Bishop. The relationship was listed as partner. But Jones wasn't done. The final piece of the report was a series of photographs taken over the past 2 days. They showed Brooke meeting Kyle Bishop in a park in Santa Monica. In the photos, they weren't just talking. They were kissing. In one shot, Kyle's hand was resting on Brooke's pregnant stomach, a look of genuine affection on his face. He was looking at his child. Edric felt a strange, chilling calm descend upon him. The rage was still there, a molten core deep inside, but on the surface his mind was crystal clear. The CEO took over. This was no longer a personal betrayal. It was a hostile takeover of his life, and he was about to liquidate the assets. He went home that evening and acted as if nothing was wrong. He asked about her day, rubbed her feet, and listened to her complain about the caterer for the upcoming baby shower. He played the part of the doting fool one last time, every word a lie, every touch a performance. The entire time he was planning. The next day, he told Brooke he had a surprise for her. A final pre-baby romantic getaway. He had a car coming to pick them up at 6 p.m. for a private flight. She was ecstatic, immediately rushing upstairs to pack. At 5:45 p.m., Edric stood in the center of the vast living room. On the large marble coffee table, he had placed the prints of the photographs of her and Kyle. He placed the burner phone next to them, and beside that, a copy of the clinic intake form. Brooke came down the stairs, radiant in a new dress, a small, expensive travel bag in her hand. "I'm ready, darling. Where are we going?" "We're not going anywhere, Brooke," Edric said, his voice flat, devoid of any warmth. Her smile faltered. "What do you mean the car is almost here?" "I cancelled the car," he said, gesturing to the coffee table. "I think you should take a look at these." Her eyes followed his gesture. She saw the photographs. The color drained from her face, leaving a pasty, grayish pallor. She saw the phone and looked as if she was going to be sick. Her carefully constructed world was dissolving in front of her. "Edric, I can explain," she stammered, her hand flying to her stomach. "It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like," he said, his voice dangerously low. "It looks like fraud. It looks like a long con. It looks like you and your boyfriend, Kyle, cooked up a disgusting little plan to fleece me for every penny I have. No, it's not his baby, it's yours," she cried, tears welling in her eyes. But the performance was over. He could see the terror behind the tears. "Stop," he commanded, the single word cracking like a whip in the silent room. "Just stop. I know everything. I know about the phone. I know about the money you've been sending him. And I know that baby, the baby I was so excited for, the baby I was going to love and raise, is his." Her facade completely crumbled. The desperate tears turned into a snarl. "Okay, fine." She spat, her voice dripping with venom. "Fine, it is his. And you know what? He's 10 times the man you'll ever be. You and your precious money. That's all you are, Edric. A walking bank account. You're so arrogant you couldn't even see what was right in front of your face." "Get out." He said the words barely a whisper. "What?" "Get out of my house." He roared, the sound echoing off the marble and glass. He pointed toward the door. "You can take your designer clothes and your blood money, but you will be out of here in 10 minutes. I have security on their way. If you are not gone by the time they get here, they will remove you for trespassing." She stared at him, her chest heaving, her face a mask of pure hatred. She opened her mouth to say something else, but saw the finality in his eyes. This was not a negotiation. She turned, grabbed her bag, and stormed out the front door, slamming it so hard a piece of art rattled on the wall. Edric stood alone in the cavernous room. The silence was absolute. He looked around at the house he had built, the life he had destroyed, the future he had fantasized about. It was all gone. All of it had been a lie. He had thrown away a decade of loyalty, of genuine love, for a cheap, transparent fake. He sank onto his $1,000 sofa and put his head in his hands. He wasn't a king in his castle. He was a fool in an empty museum of his own mistakes. And for the first time since Hannah had left, he felt a pain so profound it was physical. It wasn't just the pain of being conned. It was the crushing, suffocating weight of his own monumental stupidity. The months following Brooke's explosive departure bled into a grey, featureless expanse of time for Edric. The cavernous Bel Air mansion, once a symbol of his triumph, became his tomb. Silence was the new occupant, and it was a loud, suffocating presence. He'd walk through the marble hallways, his footsteps echoing, and see ghosts in every corner. The ghost of Hannah's quiet warmth in the library, the ghost of Brooke's garish laughter by the pool, the ghost of the man he used to be in every reflective surface. His professional life began to mirror his personal decay. The laser focus that had propelled Innovate Dynamics to stratospheric heights was gone, replaced by a distracted, irritable lethargy. He would sit in board meetings, staring at spreadsheets and projections, but his mind would be elsewhere, replaying the twin betrayals, the one he had committed and the one he had suffered. His team noticed. His investors noticed. The market, a merciless and unsentimental beast, certainly noticed. For the first time since its IPO, Innovate Dynamics missed its quarterly earnings projection. It wasn't a catastrophic miss, but it was a crack in the pristine facade of invincibility he had so carefully constructed. The stock, once a rocket, began to drift sideways, then dip. The whispers started on Wall Street, quiet at first, then growing in volume. What was wrong with Edric Montrose? He was drowning in loneliness, a condition he'd never experienced. In his isolation, his mind performed a cruel trick. It began to sanctify the memory of Hannah. He erased the image of the strong, intelligent partner he'd grown bored with, and replaced it with a romanticized portrait of a gentle, wronged saint. He remembered their early days in the cramped apartment, her unwavering belief in him, her hand on his back as he rehearsed investor pitches. He conveniently forgot the years he had taken her for granted, the coldness with which he had dismissed her dreams, and the brutal surgical way he had excised her from his life. A new desperate fantasy began to take shape in the wreckage of his mind. He would win her back. He would find her, apologize, grovel if he had to. He would show her the new, humbled Edric. He pictured her in the West Hollywood condo, still heartbroken, living a quiet, diminished life. He imagined her falling into his arms, forgiving him in a torrent of relieved tears. The sheer arrogance of this fantasy never occurred to him. The call that solidified his delusional plan came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was his lawyer, Mr. Davenport. "Good news, Edric Davenport," said his voice, clipped and professional. "We've received a final communication from Ms. Peterson. They are dropping the countersuit." Edric sat up straighter in his leather office chair. "They're dropping it. The whole thing, the 15% stake." "Correct. They have agreed to revert to the original divorce settlement terms, a clean break, the $5 million payment in exchange for a full waiver of any future claims on your assets or the company. I have the paperwork right here. It's the best possible outcome." Edric barely heard the last part. His mind was racing, fitting this news into his desired narrative. She was giving up. Why would she give up such a potentially lucrative fight? The answer to him was obvious. She couldn't go through with it. She still loved him. The money, the company, none of it mattered more to her than the memory of what they once had. This wasn't a legal strategy. It was an act of mercy, a white flag of the heart. "Draw up the transfer." Edric said, a surge of adrenaline clearing the fog in his head. Immediately. He ended the call, his plan now set in motion. He would not just send the money. He would deliver his apology in person, a grand, sweeping gesture of his remorse. He drove to Cartier, the same store where he had purchased the gaudy ring for Brooke. This time he chose a necklace, an exquisite, delicate strand of diamonds, understated and elegant. It was a piece Hannah would have genuinely loved, and the choice felt like a penance, a way to overwrite his past sins. With the velvet box resting on the passenger seat of his car, he drove towards West Hollywood, a carefully rehearsed speech of contrition and longing playing on a loop in his mind. He arrived at the condo building, his heart pounding, with a mixture of nervousness and triumphant anticipation. He buzzed the unit listed under her name. Silence. He buzzed again, holding the button down longer this time. Nothing. A man in athletic gear holding the leash of a small terrier walked past him. "If you're looking for Hannah Montrose, you missed her," the man said casually. "She sold the place a few months back. Place went for a fortune, I hear. Can't say I'm surprised with her gallery doing so well." Edric stared at him. The words didn't connect. "Her gallery. Yeah, the Montrose Gallery downtown, in the Arts District," the man said, pulling his dog away from a planter. "Big deal opening all over the news. My wife dragged me to it. Pretty amazing stuff, actually." The man walked on, leaving Edric standing on the pavement, the rehearsed speech dissolving on his tongue. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers feeling thick and clumsy. He opened a browser, and for the first time in nearly a year, typed Hannah's name into the search bar. The world tilted. It wasn't a gentle stream of information. It was a tidal wave. Forbes, from heartbreak to high-tech, the unmasking of art phenomenon kintsugi. ArtNet News. Hannah Montrose shatters records and expectations with The Shattered Collection. TechCrunch. Montrose creative stuns market with acquisition of immersive tech firm Aperture. Link after link, picture after picture. There she was accepting an award. There she was on a panel with other tech innovators. There she was standing in front of a colossal, vibrant screen of digital art, her art. She wasn't grieving in a condo. She was a titan, a sensation. He scrolled mesmerized and horrified through images of her work. He saw his own cruelty, his own betrayal reflected back at him, transformed into jagged, beautiful, and incredibly valuable art. He found the address for the gallery. The drive downtown was an out-of-body experience. He parked the car, the Cartier box on the seat, now seeming like a pathetic, insulting toy. The gallery was impossible to miss. A sleek, minimalist facade of black steel and glass, with a single word glowing in elegant white neon Montrose. A line of well-dressed patrons snaked down the sidewalk waiting to get in. Edric didn't wait. He walked straight to the entrance, a ghost of his old entitlement carrying him forward. He told the baffled young woman at the door his name, and the flicker of recognition and shock in her eyes was enough to get him waved through. The inside was buzzing with the low hum of money and prestige. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne. The air was filled with conversations about artistic intent and market value, and everywhere on massive state-of-the-art screens was her work. His life with her, shattered and reassembled. He saw a piece depicting a single elegant chair being violently scraped across a marble floor. He saw another of a gilded cage, its door ripped from the hinges. He was standing inside a museum dedicated to his own failure. Then across the crowded room he saw her. She was the calm center of the storm, talking with a small group of people, a champagne flute held loosely in her hand. She wore a simple, impeccably tailored black dress. She looked stronger, healthier, and more radiant than he had ever seen her. The deep, lingering sadness he had grown accustomed to in her eyes was gone, replaced by a sharp, brilliant light. It was the look of a woman who was not just surviving but conquering. As if she felt his gaze, she looked up. Their eyes met. There was no flicker of pain, no gasp of shock. Just a moment of cool, calm recognition. She offered a polite smile to the people she was with, excused herself with an unhurried grace, and began walking toward him. "Edric," she said, her voice perfectly, even holding a new, deeper timbre of authority. "I have to admit I'm surprised to see you here." "Hannah, I had no idea." He stammered, the sheer scale of her success robbing him of his breath. He gestured weakly at the room. "This is incredible. I found a new use for my old skills." She replied, a faint, unreadable smile playing on her lips. "I came to apologize." He blurted out the words, feeling hollow and inadequate. "I know it's too late, but I need you to know. What I did was unforgivable. I was a fool, a complete and utter fool. Brooke. She conned me, Hannah. She lied about everything. The baby wasn't even mine." He laid his pathetic truth at her feet, expecting it to be a revelation, a bombshell that might garner him some sliver of pity. Hannah's calm expression didn't waver. "I know." The two words hit him with the force of a physical blow. He froze, his mind struggling to process. You know, Edric, I'm a business owner now. I do my due diligence," she said, her voice dropping slightly, drawing him into a conspiratorial bubble in the midst of the crowd. "When Catherine Peterson filed my initial countersuit, she hired an investigator. It's standard practice in a contentious divorce. We've known about Kyle Bishop, the secret phone, the money transfers, and the questionable paternity timeline for the better part of 6 months. We were just waiting for you to figure it out for yourself." He was speechless. Utterly, completely speechless. The story he thought he was revealing to her was old news. He had been a blundering actor in a drama she had been watching from the director's chair. "But you dropped the suit." He managed to choke out the words, tasting like ash. "You took the settlement." Her smile widened, and for the first time, he saw the glint of steel beneath the surface. "Yes. $5 million is an excellent source of seed capital, far more effective than protracted litigation. Why would I fight you for a 15% stake in your declining company when I could use your money to build my own from the ground up? It was a much better investment." She paused, letting the brutal business logic of her decision sink in. Then she delivered the coup de grace. And besides my lead investor for the Aperture acquisition was David Chen. He sold off his shares in Innovate Dynamics 3 months ago. He said he wanted to invest in a future with a little more integrity. The floor fell away. David, his partner, his best man, his last link to his old life, he had left him. For her. Edric could only stare, his mouth hanging slightly open, a caricature of shock. The expensive necklace in his pocket felt like a lead weight dragging him down. His grand gesture, his pathetic apology, his entire fantasy of reconciliation, it was all a joke. He had come here as a savior to rescue the broken woman he had left behind. But there was no broken woman here. She had taken the pieces of the life he had smashed and had built an empire from them, an empire that was already beginning to eclipse his own. "I have to get back to my guests," Hannah said, her tone polite, businesslike final. She turned to walk away. "Hannah, wait!" He pleaded, the sound raw and desperate, the last gasp of a drowning man. She paused, her back still mostly to him. "Yes, Edric." He searched for something to say, a word, an argument, an appeal. But there was nothing. What could he offer a woman who had everything, a woman who had built her new world on the ashes of the one he had burned down? He was irrelevant. She didn't wait for the answer he didn't have. With a final imperceptible sigh, she walked back into the warmth and light of the crowd, rejoining her world a queen in her court. She left him standing alone in the center of her gallery, a ghost at a feast surrounded by the beautiful, brilliant, and deeply personal evidence of his monumental failure. He was completely and finally speechless. In the end, this wasn't just a story of revenge, it was a story of rebirth. Edric Montrose, the millionaire who thought he could buy and sell people's lives, was left with nothing but the empty echo of his own arrogance. He learned the hardest lesson of all that character is the one asset you can't liquidate. Hannah, on the other hand, is a powerful reminder that sometimes our deepest wounds can become our greatest strengths. She didn't just get back on her feet. She learned to fly. She proves that the end of one story, no matter how devastating, can be the beginning of a much better one. What do you think is the most powerful form of karma? Is it watching someone fail, or is it succeeding so brilliantly that they become irrelevant? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of resilience and ultimate triumph resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you thinking. Thank you for listening.